Hello, my name is Apollo and welcome to Pantheon Talks. This video is going to be a little bit different from our normal videos. It's going to mostly focus on our opinion based on our past experience. So if that isn't your cup of tea, then this isn't the video for you. Now, no one has the right to be rude to another individual, even in comments online. Shocking, right? Hate speech, derogatory comments, illegal statements, or anything that goes beyond criticism of the comic should never be tolerated. This video is going to focus on how we can deal with negative comments. If you want our key to staying slightly sane when dealing with online negativity, then please stick around. In an ideal situation, we would just ignore a comment that we dislike. However, unfortunately, it's not that simple. This video is for those of us who have a hard time avoiding or engaging with negative comments, and individuals who allow negative comments to either haunt them or zap their motivation. Now, dealing with negative comments can be extremely mentally draining. It can frustrate us, and sometimes it can even make us angry. When we receive a negative comment, often our first reaction is to be defensive and not to give merit to what the individual said whatsoever. Trust me, I've been there, I get it. Comments like, "These characters suck," "This story is boring," "Your art is disgusting," "You're a terrible writer," and so on, can really trigger some emotions. And so when we see comments that offend us, we may have an instant reaction of wanting to put that individual in their place and completely ignore what they said. Don't allow these negative comments to control the way you think or feel. Now, that might be a weird concept to think of, these negative comments having any sort of control over us, but to an extent, they can control the way we feel, sometimes even the way we behave, which does give them a relative sense of power over us. And we certainly don't want to let any negative, snarky comments influence how we feel about ourselves or the masterpieces that we are creating. So take the high road, which is easier said than done. Now, the way we do this is by reformulating how we look at comics. We like to use the method that me and Poseidon came up with called "It's rude, but is it true?" When reading a negative comment, I, the person who's reading it, me, not anyone else, determine the comment's value and if it will benefit us. That's right, the comic's value is determined by you. Remember, they're posting on your project, on your artwork, on your whatever you're working on. Of course, when we see comments that are positive, they make us feel happy and we want to automatically respond and engage with the commenter. However, comments that are just awful, just don't engage with them, period. Force yourself to ignore them. That's what I try to do. Now, comics that are biased, critical, or form poorly is where we especially apply this concept. It's rude, but is it true? Now, why do we do this? Because an extremely rude comment can be beneficial despite our personal feelings. And please don't misunderstand. I don't want any of us to tolerate negative comments, but the reality is, as creators, we will have to deal with this. A key to remember is that all comments are formed with bias, and it's almost impossible to ever receive a truly objective critique on your work. Remember, art and writing are subjective. Now, I formulated these annoying comments into 3 different categories. We touched on them a little bit earlier: biased comments, critical comments, and poorly formed comments. Now, let's start with the first one, biased comics. They're just that, a blanket statement that generally has no value. It's the opinion of the individual on your work, and remember, they are well within their right to dislike something within our comic, our story, our artwork, whatever it might be. That's just natural. All of us don't like the same thing. Often these comments have no value in the sense that they don't benefit us as creators. It's generally things like, I don't like this art style. I don't like these characters. This story isn't for me. Okay, why'd you leave a comment? Just leave. These are all very broad statements, and we need to remember our comics, or whatever it may be, won't be for everyone. That's just how it is. Applying "it's rude, but is it true" doesn't really apply to these comments because the writing and the design of the comic is subjective. Don't expect every reader to be a fan. Remember, we have to be realistic, and although we're creating a masterpiece, some people just won't like it. So with biased comments, I generally choose to just ignore, or at least I try my best to ignore them. Next, let's look at critical comments, which on the surface can be very useful, especially if the person is specific and articulates exactly what they feel. Now, we didn't ask for this criticism, and this can catch us off guard, especially if most of the feedback has been positive. If you're watching this and you're not a creator, just know that unsolicited criticism is generally never welcome, especially in a public forum. We as creators just don't like it regardless of your reason, and even if you're trying to be helpful, it's still a little bit annoying sometimes. However, the information given could be helpful, revealing some improvement points that our story or our writing may need. So for comments like this, I do apply the method "it's rude, but is it true?" Now this involves breaking down exactly what they criticize. If they said something like, "Understanding where your characters are located is confusing. However, if I clearly used establishing shots, then it's likely that they are not paying close enough attention to what was done. And in that case, you can just ignore the comment." So yeah, it's rude, but it wasn't true. However, the opposite could happen, where we didn't use an establishing shot. So it could be rude in the way they worded it, but it is true. So always take a moment to analyze yourself. Working on a deadline sometimes means that we're going to forget things. We're going to accidentally make sacrifices for things, and it might be something that we didn't even notice. So always double check before you get annoyed. Sometimes we've made the mistake. Just make sure to be clear before addressing it who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Now lastly, comments that are formed poorly. I feel that these are the ones that really get under our skin because not only can these be true, but they're generally phrased in a hurtful way. An example of this, it could be that someone points out not only a major plot hole, but it's worded in a way that belittles us. The belittling is the major issue. The person who wrote the comment is trying to disguise it as helpful advice. Now, in a perfect world, I would love to just avoid these comments. However, sometimes you just can't. They just grip you. Often I found that these comments are the ones that will just stick with me because it's possibly pointing out something that I'm personally dealing with or that I'm already aware of. We can't control what people say, but we can control what we do and how we respond. Firstly, don't respond. But take what they said and analyze it. Yes, it's definitely rude, but is it true? So weed out specifically what the comment is saying. Is it about something specific to the art or the writing that will benefit me, or is it just a rude opinion? Now, I've turned what was supposed to be a comment that frustrated me into something that works in my advantage, which can make us a better artist or a writer. So it was actually beneficial. Now, although the comment could be something that just annoys us, angers us, just don't fall into that trap. If you can't avoid it or delete it, turn what could have been a bad situation into something that works for you and benefits you. Now, I hope this method helps you deal with any negative comments that you're experiencing. Try and apply it to some comments that ignore you. Yes, it's rude, but is it true? All right, so Next week, we will discuss our Webtoon recommendations for September. I'm pretty excited about this one. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave a like, a comment, and most definitely hit the bell. Be sure to follow us on all our social media accounts, link in the description. We are particularly active on Instagram, so if you want to chat with us, feel free to pop on by. Alrighty, I'll catch you in the next video.